our topic today that many of us, if not most of us at this age, deal with, and that is dating when you have adult children. Thank you so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. I want to welcome back Sandy Weiner, the dating coach and communications expert, and now the author of her second book, Choice Points in Dating. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thanks so much for having me back, Silka.
Always love talking to you. You're always full of great advice. And I want to base our topic today on one of your chapters, a very important topic, and that is dating when you have adult children.
Dating with children can be challenging, and we are at choice as to how to prepare our kids, how to prepare ourselves, how to have tough conversations, both with our significant other and our children, their children. There are so many people involved in this whole scenario. And the most important thing is to think about this and take it seriously and to prepare for it, because it can really sabotage a potentially growing relationship.
Yeah, it can, and it does. In fact, one thing I read, one article I came across is that, I'll read it here, the single greatest predictor that a marriage or relationship will fail is the presence of children from a previous marriage or a previous relationship. And it makes no difference, as you just said, whether the children are minors or adults. Let's talk about that. How do you prepare to go back out there again?
Yeah, so you have to really talk to your kids if you have kids and tell them when you are ready to date. I highly recommend that. And I've seen too many people mess this part up because they just assume that their kids will be fine with them dating and they don't discuss it, or they do date and tell them mommy's out playing with her friends and meanwhile she's seriously dating somebody. So I think treat your kids like people and sit them down and tell them honestly that you're going to be dating. But I also recommend that you get clear about your own boundaries around what will happen once you are in a serious relationship. I recommend not bringing people in to meet your kids unless you're in a serious relationship, because it's not fair to them no matter how old they are. They don't need to know your dates. They don't need to know the details of your sex life, for sure. Amazing how many people do that. So I have to put it out there, even though it sounds pretty obvious. But set those boundaries with yourself and with your kids. Then you open the conversation up to the kids. What are their concerns? What are their fears? A lot of times kids just shut down. So it may require a therapist and somebody who can really help you talk this out, because you deserve to have a life, but you also want to make sure that there's peace, because if you don't set it up well, it's going to come back to bite you.
Absolutely. And I actually interviewed two therapists. They wrote a book about it. Home Will Never Be the Same Again. And you just hit two key points that I thought were so important. One is that don't assume that your child, this is for adult children, this particular book, because we tend to discount. If they're adults, they can handle this. Not so. And we tend to discount that they are probably not as happy about it as we are, that we, hey, we're dating someone. And then when you said that about don't share your, sex or a lot of parents, apparently, all of a sudden your child is your peer, or you even want to get advice from them. This is so prevalent that it had to be addressed in a book, and you just brought it up again. So I'll throw it out there to reemphasize that as well. Let's get to what some of the issues that you're likely to encounter that could be, and I'm going to call them red flags that you should pay attention to, whether it's you or whether it's the other person, and that the person that you're dating does not get along with his or her kids, not your kids, but his or her. Why is that a red flag?
You just want to make sure that they have not built a wall between themselves and their kids. Sometimes there's an ex who is contentious in the relationship and has done some gaslighting, and the kids don't want to speak to their father because the mother has poisoned them against the father. Whatever the case is, there's some drama there, there's some trauma there, and you're probably going to get sucked into it. So it's important to just discuss it and learn what are the circumstances. Like I always say, talk about it, learn what the problem is with this person, because you don't know, you can't put them all in one box.
Mhm. No, I agree. I think that is a red flag that absolutely needs to be looked at. Now there is estrangement in so many families, and it's not towards sometimes it's even normal, but you still have to know what it was, and then you can decide whether or not it's a drama, that you want to take on. And yes,
Mhm.
absolutely, especially if there's the crazy ex involved. And I mean that both men and women, not just women.
Yeah.
Another red flag, if your kids don't like your new partner, if your kids don't, how do you handle that?
Get curious, listen to them. Just don't get defensive. Just really hear them out, address their concerns. And if they need more time to get to know them, then give them more time. Don't put the partner in front of their face. Don't bring them over for dinners or sleepovers, especially sleepovers. Try to have those when kids are not in the house. But if you have full custody, then that may not be possible. Sometimes it just takes time. And I know that in the case with my ex-husband, he started dating right after the divorce, and my kids they didn't feel comfortable with his new partner. They didn't feel comfortable with her daughter, and it wasn't handled well. And it was very difficult for many, many years. But now the daughter is in college. She was like 5 when they first started dating, and everybody gets along. But it took a lot of time because it wasn't handled well from the beginning. So the good news is some of these things can be resolved, especially if you have mature kids who can really talk things through. But sometimes there are clues from your kids that actually there is a problem. And if that's the case, then pay attention to your kids.
Yeah. Well, that was another one of your points, that if your partner doesn't like or even mistreats the kids, mistreatment, that's of course that's just a no, that's done. But if he doesn't like them, you know, how, how do you handle that?
Yeah, if he doesn't like your kids, he's probably not going to treat them very nicely. And he'll probably criticize them. He'll probably do something that is unacceptable. And that's a huge red flag.
Mhm.
Then, trust your intuition that this is not going to work, because it's a violation of boundaries. It's not his business to treat your kids, parent your kids, to do any of these things to your children.
Yeah, it's amazing how often that happens, and I think I just became aware of it with my ex-husband. I think that his new the woman he's been with put a little bit of a line in between him and his kids, which I never would have expected. So this happens, especially as we get older and maybe feel like, oh, this is our last chance at love or something. We let things go that maybe we should have paid attention to. So I don't know, it a big issue. The other one, and I've run into this, if your partner doesn't agree with the way you parent your child, or the other way around, you disagree with the way he or she does, oh boys, that get contentious.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest ones I've seen. I have a client who, even though he has adult children, he would drop everything for the kids and leave her hanging when they had plans.
Yeah.
So they would supposed to go out Saturday night, and the daughter calls and says, I want takeout. She's like 18 and can order Uber Eats. I want takeout, Daddy. Come bring it to me, that kind of thing. And the kid and she'd be like, "What are you doing? You're treating me disrespectfully when your daughter is making ridiculous demands." That's something that happens a lot of times where there's guilt in a divorce and you feel like you just want to coddle your kids. I dated a guy like that. He would drop everything for his kids, and not in our relationship, but I saw how he prioritized his kids so much because he felt so bad about the divorce that he made his daughter's bedroom into this magnificent like palace, and he had like 4 kids. he was sleeping in the living room behind a partition. He didn't even have a bedroom.
Mm.
And I lost respect for him because of the way he parented his kids. So, either way, it can be a contentious issue. So again, talk it out, speak up. With my client, she would say, I feel disrespected when you break plans with me. This is not acceptable. So, can you talk to your daughter about ordering her own food instead of breaking a plan with me?
Mhm.
So it's just important to address these things before they become bigger, because once you're in a serious relationship, it's really hard to change those things, and it just builds terrible resentment.
Right, right. And it establishes a pattern that the kids feel like they can get away with this. It becomes a control issue. And yeah, it's not going to work. Big,
No.
big, big problem. The other one, if he doesn't want to, or she doesn't want to be part of your kids' lives, again, happens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, some people are honest and they'll say, "Man, I don't like kids.
Mhm.
I don't want kids. I don't like kids. I don't really want to be part of your kids' lives."
Mhm.
If that's an important thing to you, then it's a huge red flag. Let them date somebody else who doesn't have kids and feels the same way. That's fine. Doesn't make them a terrible person, but that's not going to be compatible with somebody whose kids are a part of their life, an important part of their life. And even once your kids are grown up, you're still going to see them. You're going to visit them. Like, I have a daughter in Israel. I am going to be there for 3 weeks in April. That is part of my life. I'm not going to give that up for somebody. I may not have to take along a partner, but you have to build these things into a relationship, and you have to talk about them. That I am going to be part of my kids' lives. I'm going to have kids over for the holidays. Let's talk about how we're going to make this work.
Yeah. Well, and then kind of the opposite of that, not maybe not the opposite, but the what stem or comes out of that as well is that the kids disrespecting your partner or being rude, or that's a huge problem too. And then how you deal with that. Do you allow that? I mean, people don't know how to handle it because of guilt as well as some other things. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, work through your guilt, first of all. I mean, if we get divorced, the biggest fear, I think, for a lot of people is the effect it's going to have on kids if you have kids. And I remember it was one of my biggest fears. I didn't get divorced for a long time because I thought it would screw up my kids' lives.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked really hard to make sure that they were emotionally okay before I started dating. I talked to them about the divorce. I talked to them about why I got divorced, how we were unhappy together, why it was an important decision. They all totally, totally get it.
Mm-hmm.
They say, like, I can't even imagine you married to dad anymore. I love you both, but you are not a good couple. That is the ideal, right? You want your kids to be able to see that, to love you both, not to choose sides. But
Mm-hmm.
most people don't have these conversations. And there's a lot of unspoken stuff and feelings that come up. And then the guilt that I left your father or your mother. And the worst thing you can do is stay in a terrible relationship and model that for your kids. So really go to therapy, go to coaching, work through your own guilt, because that's important,
Mm-hmm.
and address the rudeness, because your kids are not allowed to talk to anybody that way. They're allowed to say, "I'm sad,"
Mm-hmm.
or I'm upset with this, and then have a healthy conversation about it. But don't be rude to the other person, or don't be mean to me.
Right.
Talk about it like a kind person.
Yeah, because the issue really is between you and the kid. It's not really you and that other partner. They're blaming you for something that you need to address and that your partner can't. But yeah, it's just going to cause horrible issues, with any for any chance of an evolving relationship.
Mhm.
We're also starting to come to the end again, Sandy. The one thing that I want to add, which what really hit home for me, especially like I said when I interviewed Bruce and Carol, is that we discount how difficult a breakup is for adult children. Like you said, you waited until they were out of high school. A lot of people say that. We waited until our kids were grown before we split up. And there are so many issues that will go into a new relationship with adult children, that it might be, might not hurt to really think about that. What are your adult children going through? And I'll let you close.
Yeah, I mean, all of my kids had different reactions to me dating, and it was really interesting. And it's also changed over time. We've been divorced for a bit of time now, and my kids have changed their opinions. But I'll never forget my son saying, I'm okay with you dating.
Mhm.
I just don't think you should ever get married again. Or I don't know why you need a man because you're like a man and a woman. And it was true. That was how he experienced me. And then my oldest daughter didn't want me to have a partner again because she would feel uncomfortable and she'd have to always be dressed if she came to visit me. I mean, they had concerns. So we can talk about it. Now they're all like, totally support you, mom. We want you to date. We are happy that you have relationships. And so I think understand that this could evolve, but continue the conversation. Don't just have it once. Just keep having it. Have it in cars where you have the best captive audience. Have it in safe places. Go out to a restaurant and have a conversation. Just keep talking because it's the people who don't talk that have the biggest issues.
Yeah, exactly. That sweep it under the rug and just think everything's okay. Sandy, thank you so much. It's such an important conversation. I'll, of course, link to all of your information as I usually do. Your book, please, if any of this hit, resonated with you, it really is a great book. And you have all kinds of exercises in it, and well, just lots of hands-on stuff that you can put to use as you're going through this transition of dating again, later in life. So, Sandy, thank you. And I look forward to our next conversation on Second Act TV.